So it's that time of the year, the weather's chilly, everybody's eating garbage and dressing all fancy. I'm still living in a sodding haunted residency. Oh boy, you know what time it is. November, duh. Halloween was like a month ago. You know what I've been up to the past few weeks? Only huddled in the back of a laser tag to get on customer services asked for not sending over a guy to fix my modem. I mean, they took so long that this joke doesn't work anymore now. It's December, goddamn. Why were you huddled in the back of a laser tag? To get some better phone reception, man. I hear that shit's hard to come by these days. All's well though, finally got that dial-up internet working again, so you should be seeing a lot more content from now on. Speaking of though, I understand if this is a disappointment to any of you, with this year's Halloween special being delayed and all. By over a month. If only there was a way to make up for it by blasting through a hearty collection of short and spooky games for the ultimate concentrated spooky experience. Again, just a concept though. I'm imagining bite-sized horror games maybe created by... a name's coming to me, Wooden Biscuit? Close enough. PaperCookies, you heard of this guy? Imagine the combined length of every good zone from Sonic 1 turned into a horror/experimental experience, and boom, you have yourself a PaperCookies game. Typically short in length, but my god is the stuff this guy makes quality. He goes by Adam Pie on Twitter, and Adam Pipe, you know, legally. You might know him best for No Players Online, VHS 1986, and SPOOKWARE. Not necessarily putting out the scariest games, but rather creating short bursts of super interesting concepts baked into creepy or satisfying gameplay. That kind of thing is his forte. I love each and every one of the little games Adam puts out for the most part. They're all at the very least something new every time, whether it's due to the funky visuals, wacky gameplay mechanics, or the overall concept of the game. It's hard to even pit any of these against each other in a standoff of which one is better. They're so hard to compare that it makes comparison, you know, hard. So I hand Blossom Cherry picked 12 PaperCookies games to have a stab at that all vary in length, genre, shape, genotype, bone structure. The variety is all here. And boy, does it make each experience worth at least a few minutes of your time. So what have I got to lose? I got my itch.io tab open at the ready, my emergency turkey on standby, the ghost locked in the basement. Really, I'm overprepared. Just give it a second, it's okay. Dropkick, this is a local multiplayer game. I live secluded. This is off to a good start. You and a buddy are supposed to team up and squish and kick these funny little creatures into the void. Except it's still fun to piss around on your own and not win at all. It feels heavily inspired by the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. In fact, when you break the gameplay down, it becomes identical. 2 players stunning and then promptly booting foes to ace victory. There are several different maps to choose from, an option between a time or lives mode. It's really nothing too crazy. This is the kind of thing you boot up for 15 or 20 minutes before you get bored. It's neat, but nothing super captivating at all. Keyboard Twister, finally a game that normalizes what it's like to get a Charlie horse. It's Twister, but with one hand and half a keyboard. This game is 3 extremities away from a cease and desist. Sure, sometimes it's easy to cheese this thing if 2 keys appear next to each other, but it works. And hey, this is a single player in-browser Unity game. If you're cheesing at something like this, are you really winning? Car Game is a car about a game. Shit. You ever spontaneously dream about driving a stick shift over a canyon floor, avoiding suspiciously placed boulders until you begin to defy the laws of gravity and ascend into a vortex? Yeah, me neither. That's why PaperCookies filled everybody's insatiable need for this with an interactive experience that emulates exactly that. By operating the pedals, wheel, and stick with just the mouse, of course. My god, I feel for the people with working appendages who try to play this. Tonsil Terror, here's something a little more lengthy. So you know Slender. The 8 pages are 8 pieces of candy and the flashlight toggle is you opening your mouth to scream, off you go. It's a novel concept, having the player's point of view be inside the mouth of the player character. Very inside, and having them open their mouth to scream does give you a total view of your surroundings, but the noise attracts the 2 ghosts roaming the vicinity that'll try to stop you before you win. You can actually use your mic to scream, yell, or emit other miscellaneous inhumane sounds in order to open your mouth in-game, which is fun, ties into that novelty some more. And for those of us without lungs, there's an option to use the spacebar instead, thank god. It's a cute little game with about the right level of difficulty. It took me around 45 minutes to beat it. All you get is a stinking congratulations for beating it though. There, I saved you an episode and a half of Animaniacs, you're welcome. No Players Online is first off an outright lie, this shit's still working I swear, but secondly a truly intriguing experience. The entire game is meant to emulate an old capture the flag online multiplayer FPS type shtick, except you guessed it, nobody gives a toot, you're on your own. Only one map is featured here, a fairly small one too, and your task here is to simply capture the flag. Though of course, no low poly game with a CRT filter is ever too innocent, and of course, it doesn't mean to make it obvious that something's up. There's a certain eeriness to all this, a game that's supposed to be chaotic and carefree, bustling with other users, becomes lonely, isolating, and maybe even a little creepy when you're left on your own to roam the expanse built for so many other players. Not unlike the rest of PaperCookies games, this is a pretty short one, but it's still incredible at building tension in its own right, with some not so scary jump scares, but that overhanging creepy factor always stuck with me with this one. Level geometry and assets changing and disappearing ever so slightly while out of view, unexplained music cues, whatever the bitch this is, there's a bit to unpack and discover here, and sleuthing through the game to figure out alternate endings was definitely a lot lot of fun. The tower, you unlock a tower door with a flashlight, head up the stairs, figure out how to solve this light puzzle in under a minute. I dropped to about 1 frame a second for half the game. This one kinda stunk, I'm sorry. Don't Look Away from the Colors is the most anxiety-inducing non-horror game I've ever played. And I've played Pet and TV on PS1, I know what I'm talking about. This game is the ultimate staring contest between you and everything that's not white. The longer you keep your mouse away from the colors, the more disordered the music gets, and it is way more difficult than you'd think not to lose to this. Things do become relatively manageable though, until you're made to stare at orange objects. Imagine if your mouse was the ice level, this is what this turns into. Well, you make it through each stage in about 10 to 15 minutes, and all I can say is, it's a neat concept that you could do more with, but I'm content with dipping my toes into just this. Metamaze encapsulates everybody's inner critique of the Sonic the Hedgehog series and turns the idea of transitioning from 2D to 3D into an existential nightmare. No, I'm not joking, that is literally the game. 2D is boring, you can only move in 2 axes, ew gross. So you take your side-scrolling character and control what they're imagining to be a more freeing 3-dimensional space, controlling a cube's left and right movements within your 2-dimensional restrictions. Then the dream materializes, our character's fascination slowly turns to horror as they realize they've trapped themselves in an endless maze, and that's a 57 on Metacritic. SPOOKWARE, well, what if I wanna play WarioWare and shit the bed simultaneously? This ain't exactly a scary game, but rather a series of 10 spooky themes micro games you have to complete in quick succession of each other before the dynamite lights. Each one is snappy, fun, responsive, occasionally total bullshit, but it's mostly a great time. This game does such a fantastic job at replicating what WarioWare, the game SPOOKWARE was based on, does best, with a horror twist, and I love it for that. It gets pretty tough in the later rounds when things speed up, so it's a neat little time waster you'll learn all the ins and outs of after losing to the stupid ass car starting minigame 30 times. I'm allergic to stupid ass cars, leave me alone. There's even a sequel to this game, SPOOKWARE at the Video Store, with a cute little storyline, considerably more content, boss micro games at the end of each stage. It's a huge step up. A stair with no steps. Wall kicking your way to religion, that's how everybody's doing it these days. VHS 1986. I want to play detective, dammit, and I really gotta stop and think about the title of the game I mentioned before throwing out my general hourly complaint. This was created in 48 hours for a haunted PS1 themed game jam, meaning that the textures in this game freak the bitch out, look at them wiggle. The visuals feature that old school PlayStation 1 jitter that's become almost synonymous with old spooky retro games at this point, even if they have nothing to do with the actual hardware. I don't know, something about texture warping and vertex snapping gives people the piss pants, I guess, possibly due to the PS1 console being infamous for its legendary horror titles like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. Who knows. The gameplay here is just some good old-fashioned detective work. You pick up a phone informing you that you've been given a wrong set of tapes and to bring them back to the dude who gave them to you. Nothing screams staying safe and staying out of trouble like not giving a shit though, so hey, your goal is to sift through these tapes and uncover various symbols, hints and clues. This is all to figure out some kind of passcodes that can be eventually punched into this combination lock-styled map. It's a super short code and the game can be finished in around 20 to 30 minutes if you don't overcomplicate things. Like I did. The hour and a half spent picking out every fine detail before realizing how simple the combo is was valuable learning experience, okay? Half of them were anti-smoking ads, not a joke, and what better pastime than anti-smoking? Kudos to PaperCookies for introducing me to that hobby. Inputting the code and inserting the head and fifth and final tape brings us to a tape I genuinely do not think I can show on this website. Then right before the game crashes, a QR code appears on screen. Yeah, so this is one of them good old ARGs, and all I can seem to find is that from scanning this and feeding the result into some decoder, you get Sega_S. There's more to this, I'm sure, but hell if I haven't spent half a page of the script on only one of the 12 games I've discussed today. VHS 1986 is a cute little detective game, but nothing you'd really ever go back to. Though I'd love to see something like this fleshed out into a longer experience sometime. And finally, possibly the strangest entry I'm covering today is Mobius. What the fuck? So, this is a 2-dimensional platformer where you are in fact only moving left, right, up and down, and feels like your typical sphere walking rodeo. Well, somebody had to do it for a third time. It's pretty standard stuff, collecting coins, jumping on platforms, and over basic obstacles, the works. That is, until you reach a certain point early on in the game where you'll receive a prompt to left click and whoa, the gameplay shifts up a dimension and becomes a Mobius strip. The hell do you do today? The gameplay gets wild here, not just sticking with the gimmick of hey, here's some wacky shit and doing nothing more with it. It does take full advantage of such an abstract concept. For instance, you become able to expand and shrink the length of the level. For example, to jump from point A to B with a conventionally unpassable spike pit in the middle, you shrink the level down to bring those 2 points in space closer to each other. Almost like teleporting. You know, think about how moving through 4-dimensional space works. Or don't. There are also a couple of neat boss levels where you'll face against this bulky ass eyeball and the game's promotional art. These are neat little stages built around the concept the game will introduce you to gradually over the regular stages, making these some entertaining, albeit short, endurance tests. There's also this. Yeah, now this is starting to make a lot more sense. Again, this game doesn't last too long and one I managed to complete in around 25 minutes, but yet again, you could do so much more with the concepts here and bring them in totally new and wacky creative directions, maybe in a full-length sequel or something. And that is a covering of some of what PaperCookies has to offer. And from the selection, yeah, if anything, experimentation is something he doesn't shy away from, and I'm all for it. Like I said, it's difficult to compare any of these games to each other, purely from the uniqueness of each one. And while that doesn't mean I didn't perhaps prefer one to another, I doubt anybody would have trouble finding something they like here. I'm not going to pretend that all his work seems to hit the mark every time either, but like I said, at the very least, you can definitely expect some variety, and a lot of it is super high quality most of the time. And that's something you can always count on. In fact, I'd recommend following the dude on Twitter to see frequent updates on the stuff he's making. This is Mr. One Game a Month over here, so there's always content to look at every now and then. I mean, I think so anyway.